dumped. That is potential biofuel. That is potential biofuel. I look forward to the time when we are using that bush, sir, as biofuel. Or if it's not going into biofuel, going into somebody else's house. So until we start thinking about the circular economy for real, where we're using everything that is in this society, this country, to make something else, sir, we're going to find ourselves in trouble. So I feel, sir, that the time has come for us to rethink, to reassess, perhaps to re-engage, but certainly to re-energize, sir, the young people of this country. It is important. It is very important, so that when I think about all these things, sir, St. Michael South, the constituency that I have the privilege of representing, is a lot cleaner today than it was in November last year. And in who are cleaning the constituency, sir, they tell me they're taking a pride in cleaning the area that they come from. Some of them come from St. Michael South, some from St. Michael West. But they tell me that they take a pride, sir, in cleaning Barbados, because all of us know that we are in this together. That Barbados does not belong to the 30 of us who occupy this place. Barbados belongs to the 290,000 Barbadians or so that live in this country, and a couple thousand Barbadians that live outside the country. And that is why we're cleaning the country, sir. And that is why we come here today to put more money towards supporting this program that has been so ably led by the Minister of Environment. And that there are very few people who could legitimately say, because people can talk regardless, but there are very few people who could legitimately say that Barbados is not significantly cleaner today than it was when we started this program. There are few people who could legitimately say that the Minister of Environment, since he brought the trucks on the road, are not getting their garbage collected significantly more than they were before we had the trucks on the road, sir. Very few people. So that we have done a lot, sir, with a little in a short space of time. And so I support this. I wish to give the Honourable Member for St. Michael East my fullest assurance, sir, that the people of St. Michael South will stand shoulder to shoulder with him in keeping this country clean, because it is important, sir. And I wish him all the best as we continue, sir, to make Barbados the shining beacon of hope for all the rest of the world and indeed for the Caribbean. I thank you, sir.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Mr. Chair, sir, I rise to give my brief intervention, certainly to support this supplementary eruditely exposed by none other than the Member of Parliament, the Minister responsible for the environment and national beautification. I want to give him my unreserved and unequivocal support. And I want to start with a simple maxim. Cleanliness is next to godliness. And when this was first exposed by none other than the English cleric John Wesley in the latter half of the 18th century, one would never believe that it would have lived centuries and centuries, because the basic understanding of this phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness, seek to enhance what we do in this country and for this country. And then we can have every Barbadian, I am sure all the members in here, those in earshot and eyeshot, could agree with me that your granny would have told you that. Your mother, are you looking around, would have told you that. An adult would have told you that while you were an impressionable young person. I am absolutely sure of it. But not only cleanliness is next to godliness, but I want us to understand that what happens in this country redounds to the benefit of not only the persons that occupy the space before us, but the unborn child as well. And every single decision we make as a government must take into account the next generation and the generation to follow. That is why when the Member of Parliament for St. Michael East, that is why when he employed those young men prior to the Yuletide season, this person in my constituency told me he bring good tidings of great joy to them around the Christmas season. And I have never seen him put on a Santa Claus hat, but I'm sure he would fit the portfolio. But they thought that he brought great tidings, good tidings of great joy, because it was an opportunity for them to make money. And as part of our manifesto, we said, as a government, that we will give communities the opportunity to have a tangible stake in their environment. We will give communities the opportunity to be involved in any program that seeks to improve their lives. That is what we said as a manifesto promise. And we trumpeted it on every single platform in Barbados. We said that once contracts are under $200,000, that the community must be given an opportunity to bid for those contracts. That's what we said. And a contract under $150,000, that young person, and I'm happy that the Member of Parliament, although I'm a little younger than him, took the opportunity to speak to about young people today. And I agree with him 100%. But we say that once a contract is less than $150,000, we should engage the young people within constituencies. So I'm happy not only that the Member of Parliament for St. Michael East, the Minister responsible for the environment and national beautification, I am happy not only that he is able to employ Barbadians around this country, but that he gives persons from communities the opportunity to make a difference within their communities. I think that is the most significant thing. So the persons in my constituency, and I always refer to it as the epicenter of Christchurch, of course. I see the Member of Parliament for St. Christchurch, South looking on. But what I think is the epicenter, I want to say to the Minister that you have the unreserved thanks from the likes of Skinny. I didn't call them names. The fellows who benefited from this program. Skinny and Millie Mills and Pookie. You can call all the names from Christchurch West Central that are saying the government's praise today, because we give them an opportunity to make an honest donor and at the same time make a difference in their communities. That's the caveat. By their hand, sweat, and brow, they are able to transform the face and their geographic space, the face of their community and their geographic space. I think that is important, that when they open their homes and their doors and they look outside, they can see the difference that they made to their community and to their country inadvertently. I think that is the most important aspect to this program, that the communities are able to transform themselves. There is nothing more rewarding than when a person is able to achieve something by working hard, and more importantly, working together. And that is what this vision is about. It is for every single Barbadian to have the visual acuity to see a project come to fruition. That is what Vision 2020 is about. And you would have heard the Member of Parliament for St. Michael Northeast say time and time again that many hands make light work. Many hands make light work. But at the same time, the antithesis of this is that no work make light hands. And the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South spoke to this. The Member of Parliament spoke to this, that those fellows ordinarily may have found themselves in nefarious activities, because one could only imagine, after 10 years of disillusionment, after 10 years of disengagement, after 10 years of disinterest, after 10 lost, lame years, the level of delusion has no boundaries. And young persons were saying that they were blinded with the fact that there was nothing in Barbados that excited them. There was nothing in Barbados that titillated their interests. But I am thankful, certainly, for not only Member of Parliament of St. Michael Northeast Vision, but for this entire government who has worked with the PS to try to right the wrongs and to give young persons in this country the opportunities. I am saying, Mr. Chair, that not only does it provide a viable income and an opportunity for our young people, but for the ecosystem and the environment. That is where the caveat lies. When you remove bush from the side of the gutters, this allows free water flow. Less water that is running into the sea, as we know it. And the member of Parliament for Christchurch, he will tell you that he has a problem right now with dryness and drought condition in this country. We need to capture all the waters for the aquifers. So when you remove the bush, you allow the free flow of water, along with the potential for a health threat. It is known that we have a problem with rats in this country. There's a problem with mosquito and mosquito-borne illnesses. The less bush, the less breeding ground for these things. And it is a known fact that mosquitoes kill more persons in this world than any other animal or insect, as we know it. Over 12 million a year. Only recently we had issues with Zika. And dengue fever is always a threat. So that is the reason why this is so important to us. And we are also encouraging those young men, 12 from every single constituency, to look after the plants that the member of Parliament for St. Michael's, along with the vision of the Prime Minister, to plant around this country 1 million trees. These same youngsters now have the opportunity to look after these trees. These same persons employed in the project now have the opportunity to look after the trees because the importance of these trees. We may not see the reward of the significance of these trees right now as it stands. But in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, where global warming, if we do not change the course as we know it, will seek to destroy our basic way of life. 1 million trees. 1 million trees can take from this very environment 48 million pounds of carbon dioxide, which is part of the gases that cause the greenhouse effect, leading to the increase in temperature, and we know all the chain link effects of global warming, sea rise, sun in the ocean, you name it. The importance of planting trees and taking care of them. And I'm imploring every single young man who is part of this project to be responsible for the trees in their communities and their environments, because it may be very well protecting their family, their future, their unborn child. We cannot continue with the normal way of life. We have to understand the existential threat, not only to us as a race and a people, but to every single animal that exists on this planet. Carbon dioxide levels in May last year rose to 400 and something parts per million. If we continue on this trajectory over the next 20 years, it is believed that it can go up to 800 parts per million. We will not be able to breathe air as we know it. It is a serious threat. And I'm asking every single young person to be part of this effort and this exercise. Be a part of taking care of your environment as you know it. So I want to thank the Member of Parliament. I want to thank him for giving young persons, especially those in Christchurch West Central, the opportunity to earn a living and at the same time take care of themselves and their families, but more importantly, be given that once in a lifetime chance to take care of their surroundings, their environment. That is the most important thing. So, Mr. Chair, sir, I want to let the whole of Barbados know that we will continue as a government to work with very connective sinew so that our young people, our old people, the disabled, those at the bottom of the spectrum, that everybody that live in this beautiful country, and I ask somebody, my beautiful, oh beautiful Barbados, we can make Barbados beautiful again. But they wanted to give them the assurance that we are going to move a very single connective tissue to make Barbados a better place for all. And I want to leave with the words of Jimmy Cliff, better days are coming by and by. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. The honourable member for St. Michael West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting Chairman. Let me begin by saying two things, two very important things. The honourable member for St. Michael East, who introduced this resolution before the committee, is my MP. He did not speak to me on the matter of recruitment for persons for this work, either in this continuing phase or in the first phase. Second thing, the honourable member for St. Michael East, who introduced this resolution before this committee, knows that I am the duly elected member for St. Michael West. He did not speak to me about recruitment of persons with respect to this matter, either in this continuing phase or in the previous phase. Knowing him, and the good job he does of representing me in this chamber, knowing him and the level of friendship which we share, knowing him and the frequency with which we dialogue, I must come to the conclusion that he did not directly or immediately manage this process and therefore is totally unaware as to who exactly was recruited and from where. Because had he known, I am sure, I would have been personally informed. I would have been given the opportunity to offer some names or suggest some names of people out of St. Michael West. So I conclude, I am sure, that this was handled below his level, as probably is the case by some servant of the public other than himself. I did hear the honourable member for Christchurch West Central said that there were 12 persons from each constituency chosen. I further know that the honourable member for St. Michael East would not subscribe to the view espoused publicly in Barbados by the individual nominated by that party to represent the party's interests in St. Michael West, that no resources will be made available to Joseph Atherley because he's no longer a part of the government. I know that the honourable member for Christchurch East would not support that view, would not support the espousal of that kind of thinking. So I know that it is not from that point of view that I was not encouraged to suggest some names for recruitment for these positions. Having said all of that, Mr. Acting Chairman, I am happy to know that the government is embarked upon a program of cleaning up Barbados, because Barbados has become a messy place. And let's not pat ourselves upon the backs too early. It is not yet a clean place. It is still a messy place. And I would want to applaud the Honourable Minister of the Environment for the labours that he has exerted in an effort to bring improvement to what was really a bad situation with mess and garbage all over the place, making the country very, very unsightly. I would like to think that government is not simply motivated by the thought that we are into the year of regathering, but that government is motivated by the view that we need to have a clean environment in the interest of the health of our own people, in the interest of the health of those who come to visit with us or to reside temporarily here, and in the interest of having the country remain a jurisdiction that is attractive and appealing to potential investors. So I believe that this is the type of thinking that should drive efforts like this, and not simply because in the instance of a celebratory year, that we do this to impress those who visit our shores for the regathering exercise this year at Barbados is a clean environment. Compared with others in the region, we are down the list. Compared with others in the world, we are not even on the list. I was in a place recently, Mr. Chairman, I tell you, I traveled back and forth for a week, an hour and a half going each way. And during the course of the week, I saw literally two small pieces of litter on the surface of the roads. So Barbados is not even on the list. So we have to clean up this place. Now, you go around the roads of Barbados and you see the specter of bush and trees growing not only on the sides of the roadways and the highways, growing in the middle of the highways along the ABC highway. You see bush and shrub growing out of the medians in the road and all that type of stuff. We really need to be in a position to treat to this fully. I understand the circumstances of constraint because of the financial situation in Barbados over the last several years. But we really need to treat to this because it speaks very loudly a message to the world who may not understand the circumstances that we are an untidy people, we are an uncaring people with respect to our environment. I believe the environment should loom large in our thinking with respect to many things these days, and certainly this is one of the basic things with which we should pay due attention when we think of the environment in Barbados. So we really got to get that right, Mr. Speaker, and the fact that we would take the time to find some people who can give themselves to the business of putting us in better shape, environmentally speaking, is to be supported, and we do support this. I heard the Honorable Minister in his initial presentation suggesting that in this continuing phase, people will be moved to week-on, week-off basis until the end of the financial year. And then there was an attempt to offer a correction in an aside, and taking the cue, the Honorable Minister then said, beyond the end of the financial year. Now, I am left unclear as to what is the intention, what is the plan, what is the projection. Is it till the end of the financial year, which is shortly upon us? Or is it beyond the end of the financial year? And then beyond the end of the financial year, is it beyond April or beyond May? Because that is very vague language, and we need to know exactly what we're talking about if we're voting the people's money, Mr. Deputy, Mr. Acting Chair. I want to suggest, having said all of that, and somebody must do this job, the bushing should not become the highest aspiration of our people. The political system in Barbados is guilty of creating a culture in which menial, and it is menial, if you understand me clearly what I'm trying to say, and I'm not speaking out of any sense of disrespect or contempt for those who do it, but this is a menial job, and it should never be the highest aspiration of any of our people that this should be their lot in life. And the political system in Barbados, whichever administration has been in office, is guilty of creating that kind of mindset, guilty of creating that kind of culture. If it's too many of our people believe that the highest thing to which they can aspire is to get a debushing job around the Christmas season. Now here we are talking about alternating them from one week to the other. And the next time around, we will not alternate them from one week to another, but we will alternate the persons who we engage. So it'll be a different 12 from all the other 29 constituencies. It'll be a different 12. And that's not good enough. We expend as a people, taxpayers, as governments, various administrations, lots of money invested in education of our people. And for them to come through the system and not be so skilled, not to be so qualified in one way or the other, that they can aspire beyond this, to me is a systemic failing that we continue to perpetuate in Barbados. But not only do we see the lack of the requisite skills and knowledge base and so forth to equip people for better jobs in the society, the failing of the system, the economic system, has been that we are not providing that number of alternative, more sophisticated types of employment for people. So people feel that they are confined and consigned to this. And the highest aspiration, therefore, of the single mother from down in Paris Gap is that at Christmas time, I'm going to go to the MP and see if I can get a job debushing. That is a failing of the political system in Barbados. It's a failing of the economic model that we pursue and persist with. And I know, Mr. Deputy Acting Chairman, that this government is better than that, and that this government can do better than that. And though somebody has to do the job, let it be simply that somebody must do the job, and that not the majority of people feel that that is the only opportunity that they are going to get, or the majority of people feel that that is the only thing for which they are qualified, quote unquote, or of which they are capable. I believe this government is better than that. Little pay, menial work in a high-cost context is rather distressing. So you pay people for menial work, the highest thing to which they can aspire. You give them little pay every other week, and then every other group at a certain season of the year. And you do so in a context where the cost of living is high, where bus fares have gone up, where you got to pay additional water rates, where you can't go in the supermarket and comfortably buy a package of rice, where you can't feed your children properly. All I'm saying, this is a distressing situation. And for the system that we manage as governors to continue simply to offer up this as the best we can do for far so many people is distressing. It is discouraging. And those who sit in the corridors of power here, and those who hold the reins of government today, and those who will hold the reins of government tomorrow must understand that is a higher level of dignity attaching to these people than we seem to think. These people are not simply units to be used for voting purposes every 5 years and then have to be relegated to a station where the best they can hope for is that we give them a debushing job at Christmas. This is bad. I know that that is not the mindset of which the honourable member for St. Michael East is possessed, because even above and beyond myself, if there's one voice in here who would speak as to the dignity of people out there involved in enterprise and various types of labor across Barbados, it would be he, because he's a champion for the poor. And his voice is strongest, perhaps, in the corridors of power in Barbados in the interest of the poor. And I sense what he feels. And I'm driven by a similar philosophy as he is. And I'm simply saying today, we have to do our best in the current circumstances, but we must cease subscribing to that situation where the culture of the economic model we create is one that relegates these people to this type of demeaning practice, that they must be subjected to this on a seasonal basis simply to make them feel that a politician is doing something on their behalf. I feel very strongly about that. And perhaps, Mr. Speaker, before I get too emotional, I should stop. I thank you.
Thank you. The honourable member for St. Lucie.
I just rise
Not
to,
Mr. Speaker. You're
Mr.
elevating me to a
Chairman,
post
Mr.
I no
Chairman.
longer, I don't have access to, sir.
Mr. Acting Chairman.
Unless you're promising me something which you can't do.
I rise to support this resolution, this supplementary today. But in doing so, I'm a bit, and I was tempted to interrupt the last speaker, the honorable member for St. Michael West. But I'm a bit confused as to actually what he was saying in relation to the provision of jobs or work, temporary work for those persons who want to earn an honest dollar. Are you saying, sir, that these persons are not to be given the opportunity to earn a dollar even over the Christmas, to have earned some funds over the Christmas period to assist their families?
You don't remember Mr. Michael West?
Point of elucidation, Mr. Acting Chairman. The honourable member St. Michael was certainly not saying that. And if the honourable member for St. Lucie would listen carefully and with both ears at the same time, he would clearly have heard me to say, somebody has to do this, and it is good that there are those who can be found at this time so to do this job. It is unfortunate, I said, however, that we put them alternate 1 week on, 1 week off, and at next time around perhaps it will be one group on. When you consider that taxes are high, and water rates are high, and the cost of living is high. When you take these things into consideration, you are faced with a situation, Mr. Acting Chairman, where people are being taken advantage of by a system that does not sufficiently cater to them. Even though it invests heavily in their education, it does not sufficiently cater to their needs, and it leaves them with this as their highest aspiration, and that is unfortunate for a government as equipped as this.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Member for St. Lucie?
There has been a lot
That will not interrupt your time, sir. Continue.
There has been a lot of long talk by the honourable member for St. Michael West simply to say that he supports what the government is doing. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. I support this supplementary 100% because every day for the past almost 20 months, we have had youngsters, and each and every one of us have been faced with persons, confronted with persons seeking employment of some sort, no matter what it is. I am sure the honourable member for St. Michael West also alluded to the fact in his opening speech as to why the honourable member for St. Michael East did not speak with him in relation to some of these same jobs. Mr. Speaker, a little money, Mr. Chairman, a little money is better than no money at all. $200, whatever, maybe I'm not saying that is what the figure is. $200 a week in a young man's pocket $520, that's the figure. $520 a week or whatever in a man's pocket is better, Mr. Chairman, than no money at all. I'm certain every one of us in here sit in our constituency clinics on a weekly basis or however often we do it. And we are confronted by young men, young women, or men and women, as a matter of fact, because not all of them are young people in terms of being 25 and that sort of age group, because there are some experienced people who are part of the program as well, we are confronted with situations where persons just want to be able to have a little something, to do something for themselves and for their families. And if we do not provide in some form or fashion the opportunity for those people, it means they're going to get it one way or the other. Because they're going to come to you and I, and we have to be the persons to push our hands or refer them to some government agency or something at the end of the day in order to be able to meet their needs. But the program does not only do that. Over and above everything else, it helps us, it makes this country clean. Now, when you look at the environment that we live in, and especially in the urban, especially in the rural areas, places like St. Lucie or perhaps St. Andrew or perhaps somewhere in St. Philip, where there is bush, there tends to be a situation where persons dump illegally. I'm not talking about in gullies now. On the sides of the roads. I have seen for myself, Mr. Chairman, where the side of the road is cut on a particular road in St. Lucie for that matter, and the amount of plastic bags, cups, food trays, and so on at the side of the road was really, really, really horrendous. I was absolutely taken aback. And these persons that have come, that are here presently, have done a magnificent job in cleaning the various districts and villages. I can point and I want to commend, I have said so already, and I want to publicly commend the Ministry of the Environment and National Beautification and the agency which has done a lot of the work, the National Conservation Commission, for the work that they have done in this country. And I want to particularly, Mr. Speaker, speak, Mr. Chairman, about St. Lucie. You come to the Theodore Branker roundabout, almost in the center of St. Lucie. There are about 4 or 5 arteries there roads there that you can get to any area in St. Lucie. So if you want to take a trip down, Mr. Chairman, you can. But that place has been transformed in the last few weeks. Has been transformed by the agency called the National Conservation Commission. Plants beautified. The stretch of road cleaned. And you go into St. Lucie even further, you are seeing the work of these persons. I drove through the constituency yesterday during the course of the midday because you know there is the notion that government people don't work during the day, or they come early in the morning and then they go home early. But I can say yesterday, I was in St. Lucie at midday, and I saw those persons working. I saw them working in the blazing sun. And I stopped to compliment them. And thank them for the work that they have been doing. And they were very appreciative of the fact that the government had given them the opportunity to get some dollars to feed their families and to pay their bills. So I was a bit confused because whether the work is menial or not, there's somebody that has to do it. And do it well. And the Prime Minister, and I sit in a ministry which sometimes is the subject of a lot of blows from the Prime Minister in relation to work done across the country, in relation to cleaning as well. So we are happy to have a partner on board to assist the Ministry of Transport Works and Maintenance in cleaning this country. And it is not just about the cleaning, it is also about beautification. That is important. There was a time, Mr. Speaker, when I was growing up, we had communities that were responsible for their particular areas. I would like to see, Mr. Speaker, some community groups being formed again or resuscitated, where communities come together early on a Saturday morning or on a Sunday morning, early at 6 o'clock or 5:30, 6 o'clock, and clean the entire community, whether it is grass, bush, whatever it may be. I would love to see those days come back. And as a matter of fact, one of my projects in St. Lucie is working with community groups, establishing new community groups. And thus far, we have one that would have come up in the community of Greenwiches, where persons have come together to plan activities, to do projects like beautification. They have approached me in that regard already, to beautify their area, to make their area one of the best within the parish. And we want to see this kind of initiative by various groups and various districts in the various communities across Barbados, not depending on government for everything, but working together, because it brings communities together. It helps you to know your neighbors and so on, the people that live in the same districts, because not all communities are made up of persons who were born and lived there for all their lives. There are communities where people come in, where people move from one area of Barbados into another area and so on. So we want to be able to bring all these persons together as one community. That's what I want to see, Mr. Chairman, where communities come together again and work together for the benefit of the country, for the benefit of one and all. And this is very, very important. Have community cleanups. So the government would spend some money now and in the future providing small jobs for these persons within this program. But if you have those persons within the program, and then the other community groups coming together to do this job, the quicker it can be done, and the better, because it is something that has to be maintained at the end of the day. Because it's not a one-off situation where you clean a community and then you leave it like that, because especially in the rainy season, you're going to have a tremendous amount of bush going very quickly. And so perhaps the program would have to be intensified at different points in time. But once these groups come together and keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, we would not just be singing about beautiful Barbados, but we will indeed have a beautiful country. I want to commend the minister. I want to commend the Ministry of the Environment and National Beautification. I want to commend the National Conservation Commission. I want to commend those community groups that are still in Barbados today, who have their communities at heart and are doing their very best each and every day, not just to beautify, not just to clean and not just to beautify, but to keep that community spirit alive, to nurture our youngsters, to look after the senior citizens, to teach and to train persons, because all of that is part of the community life and community upbringing that I know when I was a boy. That is very, very important. And so I commend Minister, the Honorable Member for St. Michael East, and his entire team for the good work that they are doing. And all the areas in St. Lucie that I know, where the team in St. Lucie is, I can always direct them to go and do some work there, because you get the calls coming from time to time from various parts of the constituency. So as many people as you may have, sometimes you still don't have enough. You still don't have enough. But we are contented with what we have, and we're going to utilize them to the best of our ability. I'm sure that is every member of parliament in here. We utilize them to the best of the ability to get Barbados clean, and that is what we want. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Mr. Chairman, acting, this is perhaps going to be my briefest intervention in this honorable chamber. I rise, first of all, to give thanks on behalf of the people of St. Philip South for the opportunity that was given to them over the Christmas period and thereafter, especially in January, which is one of the hardest months of the year, to be able to get an income through this initiative by the Minister of the Environment and National Beautification. And perhaps by extension, I owe him a debt of gratitude for being able to manage such a program so that we can not just find employment, but beautify our beautiful country. Mr. Chairman, I support this supplementary. I support this project. But there are a couple of things that are humbugging me as a Barbadian that I believe that I should speak my mind frankly on, simply because that is what I was elected to do in this honorable chamber by the good people of St. Philip South. Mr. Chairman, we can clean all we want. We can spend all we want. But if the people of Barbados do not see it as their responsibility to stop littering our country the way they are, we have to start a different conversation. I am appalled, Mr. Chairman, at what I have personally seen when these young people went out to remove the bush and grass that had overgrown the sidewalks and the byways of Barbados. I mean, it is really inexcusable, Mr. Chairman, for people to throw out fast food restaurant boxes, soft drink bottles, plastic bags, anything at all along the byways of this country and think that is good enough. And I stand, Mr. Chairman, in this chamber saying that I completely abhor such deplorable conduct in a country that is driven by tourism. And that when I drive up Map Hill and drive down Map Hill, I see young men working diligently, completely committed to their task. But there is no way they're going to be able to remove the amount of garbage that is being exposed after they have cleared the bush that had overgrown Map Hill. Something has to be done about this, and I know that the minister that is leading this project also has responsibility for sanitation. But sanitation would never have been able to see the amount of garbage that's being piled up along our driveways, our byways. Mr. Chairman, I am vexed as a Barbadian. Now, when I was driving in traffic going to Salters in St. George, in a car, somebody pitched a soft drink stopper through the car window. as if it was so big that they couldn't keep it until they got home and pitch it in the garbage. I was appalled when driving through Old Bury. I watched from a minibus somebody pitch a pair of plastic gloves through a window of the minibus. And if that wasn't bad enough, to go home from church a Sunday morning and see fast food restaurant boxes along the way. Barbadians, I'm appealing to you. And if it is one thing I can only ask you for, is to take responsibility for your own country. Because it really upsets me to see that this, a tourist destination, when visitors drive around this country, they're looking for the aesthetics of the countryside. And that cannot be mixed with irresponsible and reckless pitching of litter right across the countryside. And I have gotten on board by asking all of the private farmers in Barbados to join this exercise and clean up their farms that are on the wayside as well. And you will see that if you drive up to St. Philip now, going all the way from South District, past Edgecombe, and Edgecombe is perhaps one of the plantations that we should really highlight as an example of what a farm should look like. And when you go up, all the way up to the children's home, Sterling Children's Home, you can see an effort being made. But in spite of that effort, and I personally believe that if we continue to clean, the human consciousness would at some point in time click in, and they will stop littering. But until then, I believe we have a huge problem on our hands, and this humbugs me. Because when they are cleaning these farms, what is happening? You're seeing bags of garbage being pitched out. Go up to Sandy Hill now, and you will see, rather than put the garbage outside in a neat and organized way, people are pitching the garbage in bags along the street. So I'm asking myself what has become of the Barbados that I grew up in as a boy, where I know I would have been flogged for littering. I know that for a fact. And so therefore, when I raise my children, my daughters would say to me, "Daddy, you're littering," if I dare drop anything on the floor of my car. But that we can have people throwing it on the streets is not acceptable. And so the farmers of Barbados have come on board and have started cleaning their farms. The BAMC as well must do it, because if I ask the private farmers to do it, I must make sure the BAMC farms are involved. And so there's a massive cleaning exercise going on in Barbados in terms of removing bush that had overgrown our streets, and bush that is as unsightly as ever on farmlands. But I am pleading to Barbadians, Mr. Chairman, to let us deal with this. And this is a conversation, perhaps out of this initiative, the greatest conversation we can have over and above who is doing the job and whether or not we should set this as a standard for people to do this kind of work. The greatest conversation perhaps we can have here about this project is how we can encourage Barbadians to participate in keeping Barbados clean. That, to me, is a conversation worth having. Because of late, when I go to my constituency clinics, I get people literally come to me asking me to clear private lots. Private lots in established communities that we consider to be middle-class communities, or the terraces and heights as we know them to be. And that the owners of these lots will want to have the asset, but don't want to take responsibility for the ownership of the asset is absurd and unreasonable. And Mr. Chairman, I strongly believe that we have to deal with this matter as a matter of urgency. Because whilst I agree that some of these vacant lots may pose a safety hazard to residents in those communities, especially females, I equally agree that as a responsible government, we may have to intervene at times to protect those innocent people. But I strongly believe that the owners of these lots, Mr. Chairman, really owe it to themselves more than anybody else to take responsibility for the asset that they own or forego the asset. Because it's not fair to ask the state to take responsibility for clearing people's house lots. It is not right, and it does not gel well with me. And I've said to many people who have come to me for help, I will go as far as I can to assist you. I've mobilized people in the constituency to help. I have mobilized people from my campaign team to help. And I've gone as far as asking the Ministry for the Environment and National Beautification for help as well. But I can't see within my consciousness as a Barbadian who understands what it is for people to pay taxes, to have to use those funds to clear a private citizen's house lot. Something must be done to deal with that mindset. And equally, not only will Barbadians litter their country or leave lots overgrown by bush, but do you know communities are not coming together anymore to say, let us get together on a Saturday with some pudding and sauce and some lemonade and a good rum. And get together. We used to do these things and clear some of these lots. If it is right next to you and you can't mobilize a team for you all to get together and clear, it tells me that something has changed within our psyche. Because we have now lost the values, those community efforts, a spirit that was right across this country that drove us to be our own neighbor's keeper. And for me, Mr. Chairman, this is the conversation that we need to have over and above anything else. And Mr. Chairman, I strongly believe that the private sector also should play a part in this. Because whilst it is true that there are private entities, there are private entities in Barbados that are supported by Barbadians. And I strongly believe that just like they have a program called Adopt a Stop or Adopt a part of the ABC highway, perhaps adopt a kilometer, that now maybe you can adopt a community. And I'm not talking about terraces and heights, because I believe people in terraces and heights should be able to take responsibility. But I'm talking about the villages like Church Village and Curtains and Rices. Villages like Carrington Village. Villages that we are known, that are part of the Barbadian culture. That when people speak of Barbados, they speak of these places. And that if you can have a private sector presence that says, look, this space, we will put up our signage, put our presence there, but maintain it. A lot of derelict buildings right across Barbados. The owners, if they don't want the property, come forward and let it be sold to people who really want them. Well, Mr. Chairman, I strongly believe that we now have become a different type of people from what we used to be. And I'm urging Barbadians to go back to our value systems and go back to the days when we cared for our country to the extent that we would not litter Barbados. And that humbugs me, Mr. Chairman, and I sincerely hope that my message resonates with all and sundry. I strongly support this supplementary. I strongly support the minister and his team. And Mr. Chairman, I sincerely hope that this program goes on indefinitely. I'm obliged to you.
The honourable member for the City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honour the Deputy Speaker and ask for leave to sit again.
Seconder. Seconder? The question is that I now do report to His Honour the Deputy Speaker progress and for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
The chairman of committee has reported progress and asked to leave to sit again.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of the sitting for lunch until 2:30 p.m.
The question is that we suspend for lunch until 2:30 p.m. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. This House is now suspended until 2:30 today.